23rd, 1941 in El Campo. She passed from this life on May 4th, 2019. These last few weeks since she's been gone, we and her family have had a hard time wrapping our minds around the fact that she's really gone. I've known her for 57 years. We met in Nightingale Hospital. It's very important to me that I should do this eulogy for her so you can all know how incredible my mom was. So these are some of the things I want you to know about my mom. Probably the most important thing was that my mom really loved her family very, very much. Our family's small, but we're very close. Gary and I have always known that our mom loved us. She used to fix lunch for us both on Fridays. Every morning when she got up, she'd ask Alexa what the weather was like in Austin, Denver, and College Station, where her grandchildren were. Her siblings were much older than her. Aunt Judy was 12 years older, and Uncle Glenn was 10 years older. Aunt Judy told me once that when my mom came along, it was just like getting a living doll to play with. When the family would go to Sour Lake, it was Aunt Judy and Uncle Glenn's job to distract Mom when they got to South Main so that she wouldn't cry and they wouldn't have to stop and go for the pony rides. My mom also, with the big age difference between my Aunt Judy, Aunt Judy had a Shirley Temple doll, one of the original ones. And when my mom got a little bit older, she decided that she would give Shirley a new do, so she cut off all her curls and crayoned her head red. And my grandmother kept that from Aunt Judy until Shirley Temple dolls came back in the 70s, and she said, "Where's my Shirley Temple doll?" So anyway, Aunt Judy took Shirley Temple to a doll hospital where they gave her hair again. And then when Aunt Judy moved to College Station, she left Shirley Temple with Mom, but Mom hadn't done anything with her hair now, so. My mom and Aunt Judy were really devoted to each other. And as such, my mom loved Aunt Judy's son, Alan, too. And he said that when Mom got her driver's license, she would take him with her to ride around town. They would go by our friends' homes to honk and wave. Maybe some guys' houses too, but Alan didn't say that. But anyway, he said that he was always so proud that she didn't mind taking a young guy like him riding around with her. My mom had pulmonary fibrosis. It's a very cruel disease. It essentially robs your lungs of their elasticity. Over time, the lung tissue becomes hard and stiff, and when you breathe, the lungs make a crackling sound. Mom had to give up a lot as her disease progressed. Early on, she had to give up singing in the church choir, and she really loved singing. She began to attend the early church in the chapel because it was generally a smaller crowd. But later, she had to end up not going to church anymore at all because even small crowds made it hard for her to breathe. I found this anonymous writing that I really think kind of says a lot about Mom and her disease. This is anonymous, but it says, "The adventure of faith. We cannot tell what may happen to us in the strange medley of life, but we can decide what happens in us, how we can take it, what we do with it, and that's what really counts in the end. How we take the raw stuff of life and make it a thing of worth and beauty. That's a test of living. Life is an adventure of faith if we are to be victors over it, not victim of it." My mom was the most patriotic person that I know. She loved and respected our country and all it stood for with a fiery passion. I found a quote from Henry Ward Beecher that said, "A thoughtful mind, when it sees a nation's flag, sees not the flag only, but the nation itself." She'd get perturbed when people did not observe proper flag etiquette. Anybody riding by her home would know that because she always flew her United States flag and her Texas flag on the appropriate holidays. She was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution and the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. She was very proud of those memberships and enjoyed tracing our lineage, or as she called it, spending time with the ancestors. Mom enjoyed traveling. She visited the Holy Land in Egypt, She and Aunt Judy went to England together one time. Mom and I did a lot of traveling together. She was my road buddy. We'd gone to the Galveston home tour for the past 19 years. On the morning of the day she passed, she asked me if I realized what we were missing that day because it was the first day of the 2019 homes tour. We went on 6 cruises together. We traveled around the state on different excursions. She loved when we'd go on trips in the spring, usually to College Station to see Aunt Judy. She had a thing about bluebonnets. She loved to see large clumps of bluebonnets on the side of the road. And she would always exclaim when she saw them. Now you're probably thinking, she would say, "Oh, look!" But it was way much more than that. You'd be traveling on, just having a normal conversation, when all of a sudden she'd go, "Ah!" Point. And that's very hard when you're driving somebody for somebody to do that because, you know, and I would always, you know, as we left the El Campo city limits, I'd say, "Okay, now be ready because you know what's going to happen," but you just can't ever be prepared enough. Mom was raised up a Baptist, so a lot of her first friends went to church there too. When Mom and her friend, Verna Jean Perkins Miller, were 4 years old, they asked Santa Claus for red cowboy boots. So then they decided that they needed to wear them to church. And their mother said, "Definitely not." But guess what? That next Sunday, there were 2 little girls coming down the center aisle wearing bright red boots. Mom was a rainbow girl, and she was also an Eastern Star. When she was in high school, she was in FHA, and she received the Betty Crocker Award. She was also a twirler, and she even twirled fire sometimes. Mom also enjoyed her monthly luncheons with the 59 girls and the 59 guys that would come to. But as time went by, she had to attend less often of those, and finally she had to stop altogether as her breathing got worse. My mom was a very caring and compassionate woman, and she had a great passion for helping people. She was a Stephen minister. She was a lay leader of this church, First United Methodist Church, and she would take communion to shut-ins and residents in the assisted living home when she was still able to. Unless you were sick, you might not know that she kept frozen containers of soup in her freezer, so she'd be able to supply soup quickly if somebody was feeling bad and there was a need for it. That was probably just kind of her southern way too. Her last job before she retired was as a massage therapist. She loved this job because she could help folks feel better. Many times, I would pick her up in the colder months to go somewhere, and she'd get inside the car. She would tell me, "I needed to get a jacket. I needed to wear a jacket, it was too cold." Couldn't she go back inside the house and get me a jacket? And I tried to explain to her that I don't like to drive in a coat or jacket because it's restrictive. But she always tried, "Are you sure? Are you sure? I don't want you to be cold." She also didn't want to be a burden on anyone, especially Gary and me. She'd always told us in the past that her important papers were in a folder in the top drawer of her filing cabinet. But this time when she was in the hospital, she told us she'd filled out a book called "I'm Dead, Now What?" This is my copy that I've ordered so I can fill it out for my children. It covers everything, like your utility companies and, you know, account numbers and just everything. But it also does talk about what your plans are. And as Pastor said, she did plan every bit of this. She wanted her funeral to be on a Saturday, so nobody had to take off work to come. She only wanted cookies because she didn't want the ladies in the church to have to stand on their feet too long. So she spelled it out more than just like the scriptures and the songs that she wanted. There was more to it than that. And she did say she wanted no flowers at her service. In her last week, when she was in the hospital in Sugar Land, the nurses told us that we were going to need to help her, to coach her through her breathing. And the best technique to get the most oxygen into you, you're supposed to smell the flowers, blow the bubbles, and that's the technique that gives you the most. And so we spent a lot of time telling her that in that last week. This is what you have to do. Come on, Mom, smell the flowers, blow the bubbles. It's going to be forever embedded in our hearts and our minds. But it made me start thinking that, you know, one of the most important parts of life is the taking in of oxygen. I mean, you need food, you need water, but oxygen is one of the requirements you have to have all the time. And so I kind of thought that this would be a good way of how I know my mom would want us all to live our lives. We need to take time to smell the flowers, and we need to spread joy for ourselves and for others by blowing bubbles. Spread that joy out. She also wanted a poem read here at her service, and in true mom fashion, she had the clipping from Saturday, July 23rd, 1988, the Dear Abby column. And at the bottom it says, "I would like this read at my funeral." And then she says, "Another copy attached." So she retyped it in large print just in case I would need that. So, I'm going to share this poem with you now. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I'm not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I'm the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn's rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I'm the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft star that shines at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there, I did not die. Also in her book, she had included another poem for those of us in her family to read that she thought might give us comfort. Okay, we're not really gathered here today to say goodbye to Mom, because it really isn't goodbye when you carry somebody in your heart for the rest of your days. My mom was ready to go. She fought the good fight, but she was very tired, very weary. She knew she was going to heaven. There was no doubt in her mind. And I imagine when she got up there, all those ancestors she'd been spending time with were all waiting there to talk to her. My idea of heaven has always been that you get to do the things you love most in the whole world every single day. And because of that, I know when I get to heaven and I'm standing at the pearly gates, the heavenly choir is going to be all lined up there. And then one member is going to step out in front and sing as I walk through. Then she'll show me some beautiful angel wings that she's sewn onto a beautiful angel jacket, just in case I might get cold. And then I know they're going to keep on singing, and we're going to walk off and get in line to tour those many mansions of our Father's house we've been hearing about since childhood. So see you later, Mom.